Dewey's Democracy in Education, the final chapter of the book, Theories of Morals, Chapter 26. Since morality is concerned with conduct, any dualisms which are set up between mind and activity must reflect themselves in the theory of morals. So, Dewey has spent the whole book critiquing and trying to overcome dualistic accounts of lots of things. Dualistic accounts of the human being. For example, separating mind from action, or dualistic accounts of how knowledge works. For example, separating reason from experience, or again, separating mind from action, because that's also a dualism in epistemology, a separation of one thing from another thing that are supposed to be in the structure of the human being, but also in the structure of knowledge. They're supposed to be integrated. They're supposed to be united, not two separate things, maybe not even two distinct things, but perhaps two separate sides of the same coin, two distinct but not separate sides of the same coin. Two sides of a coin are not separate. Different aspects of the same integrated whole that is humanity, or that is human experience, or that is knowledge. He's trying to reintegrate, rediscover the integration of all these things. And he's also opposing any social dualism that would go along with this. The book is Democracy in Education. He doesn't want society to be split up into different parts. For example, the thinking people and the acting people. No. All of us are supposed to be thinking. All of us are supposed to be acting. And thinking and acting are supposed to be part of the same process of human experience in the world. And this, these dualistic theories will have their moral applications. And that moral application is going to corrupt education. Any dualisms which are set up between mind and activity must reflect themselves in the theory of morals. Since the formulations of the separation in the philosophic theory of morals are used to justify and idealize the practices employed in moral training, a brief critical discussion is in place. In other words, he's going to critique these dualisms one more time, because they're going to corrupt moral training, which is to say they're going to corrupt education. A good education is going to be holistic. It's going to unite those things that other more flawed views separated. It's going to unite the dualism set up in epistemology, reason and experience, or something like that, and the dualisms set up in humanity, like thought and action, and the dualism set up in society between different groups or different classes of people. It's democracy in education he's talking about. A democratic conception of education is going to parallel a holistic conception of the human person. An integrated account of the human person is going to have its expression in a democratic society where we don't separate people corresponding to the way we would separate the different aspects of human knowledge, or the different aspects of the human being, if we were these dualists. And a good education is going to have to apply all these things. And it's going to be a good moral education, not just an education for knowledge that teaches us how to think and live, and to unite thinking and living. It's also going to be a moral education, because all of these things are connected. Democracy in Education is a book that's about overcoming all these dualisms and all these separations, and uniting all of these things, integrating all of these things. I'm not going to go over his final critique of all the dualisms, but let's look at some of the remarks he sets up at the end of the book, last 3 pages, on what a democratic conception in education is going to actually look like. The measure of the worth of the administration, curriculum, and methods of instruction of the school is the extent to which they are animated by a social spirit. A good education is going to be animated by a social spirit, which is to say, I think something like this. It's going to be something that trains the student to recognize the good of the community in his own good. Or maybe we should say vice versa. To recognize that his own goodness is linked to the goodness of the community. Not his own goodness. His own good. What is good for him is linked to what is good for the community. A social spirit should animate the curriculum, methods, of instruction and the administration of a school. Now, how do you make this practical? How do you animate the curriculum, the administration, and the methods of instruction of a school with a social spirit? Well, two conditions must be met for this to happen. In the first place, the school must itself be a community life in all which that implies. Playgrounds, shops, workrooms, laboratories not only direct the natural active tendencies of youth, but they involve intercourse, or you could say interaction in more modern English, interaction, communication, and cooperation, all extending the perception of connections. The education is going to be social in that it's going to integrate individual with group by means of playground, shops, workrooms, laboratories, etc., not only directing the active natural tendencies of the young scholar, but also involving that scholar in interaction, communication, and cooperation with others in all these activities. Second condition for a social spirit of education, social spirit in education. The learning in school should be continuous with that out of school. There must be no separation of education in the classroom from life outside of the classroom. Maybe a distinction, but no separation. Again, two sides of the same coin. Maybe you can distinguish them. Two different aspects of the same whole connected experience, but not separate. Maybe you can distinguish them, but you can't separate them. There should be free interplay between the two. This is possible only when there are numerous points of contact between the social interests of the one and of the other. The social interests within the school and with life outside of school should be connected. Skipping to the next paragraph. There is an old saying to the effect that it is not enough for a man to be good, he must be good for something. Dewey, I think, agrees with this old saying. It's not enough for a person to be good, you have to be good for something. The something for which a man must be good is capacity to live as a social member, so that what he gets from living with others balances with what he contributes. The something for which a person is good, it's not enough that you are good, you must be good for something. And what is that something? It is communal life. It is a life in community with other human beings where you live as a social member in such a way that what you get from living with others balances with what you contribute. You are giving no less than you take. Education is such a life. To maintain capacity for such education is the essence of morals. For conscious life is a continual beginning afresh. I think I won't comment on that. Education is such a life. To maintain capacity for such education is the essence of morals. For conscious life is a continual beginning afresh. But I welcome you to read the book and or go back to earlier videos or a much earlier segment of this video if you're watching this in the Great Text playlist, and review what he says at the beginning of the book about the renewal of life and education, and maybe you'll be able to make sense of that remark. Conscious life is a continual beginning afresh. Now, very briefly, the third last sentence of the book, all education which develops power to share effectively in social life is moral. A moral education is one which trains the student in a shared communal life with others. Now, finally, let me read or paraphrase from some of my own notes that I jotted down at the end of the book on this chapter. There is no dualism in morality between inner motive and outer conduct, or between duty and interest, nor is it the case that reason is separated from practical, daily, moral, active life. All these moralistic dualisms spring from failing to treat morality as social in nature. That's something you'll probably find in more detail if you go to the first few pages of the chapter and study his critique of these dualistic theories of education. In fact, education must be social. The school must be a community life, and learning in school should be continuous with learning out of school, so that all these things may be integrated, so that mind and action may be integrated, so that reason and experience may be integrated, so that individual and community may be integrated, so that my interest and the interests of others may be integrated, so that inner motive and outer conduct may be integrated, so that duty and interest, personal interest and duty to others, may be integrated, so that reason and action, reason and activity may be integrated, so that the thinking life and the active life may be integrated. All these things are supposed to be integrated, and never assume that one is subsumed into the other. Please don't hear me saying, so that the individual and the group may be integrated, and think I'm saying some form of communitarian socialism or something, where the individual is subsumed within the group. No, that's not it. The individual and the community are symbiotic. This is not my language. This is borrowed from Dewey scholar Stuart Rosenbaum of Baylor University. Individual and community are completely symbiotic in Dewey, as Rosenbaum correctly puts it. A separation in theory of knowledge, and a separation in theory of the human being, and a separation of different priorities in education that correspond to all these other separations, and again, a separation of human society into different groups. All of these things are connected, and they're all bad. We should fix all of them. Get a working understanding of the fact that all of these are to be united, and are indeed united in human experience properly understood, and apply this in education. That's how a democratic education ought to work. Thanks for watching. Dewey is a beautiful writer. If you didn't understand me, don't blame Dewey, I guess. Blame me. But, it's worth spending some time reading Dewey for yourself and trying to figure it out. This book is big. If the book itself seems challenging, find a shorter reading, or read significant portions of this. Like, just read the chapters I've commented on here, if you like. Or read the whole book, whatever you can manage. Whatever you like. But Dewey is well worth reading, and I encourage some of you to go and do it. Go and read good books. Don't let me do all your reading for you. Not all of it. Maybe some. Bye.